Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in internet shitlords. And today, I've had a funny kind of realization. I had been thinking of doing a video about how the new 1D&D edition has already had a lot of criticism from Wokists claiming that it doesn't go far enough, even though it basically completely eliminates race as a mechanic feature of any relevance in D&D, because part of how it does it is just like to still have feat-based traits for demi-humans. They say that's still race essentialism. They're basically saying until a halfling can fly and a human can see in the dark, that's still racist, right? Because you're suggesting that certain types of species of creature have different abilities than other species of creature, and that's just unbelievably bigoted, right? But that's not what this video is about, because I talked a bit about that already in Inappropriate Characters on Sunday, and I was kind of I was going, I don't know if I'm going to do that. And then, yesterday, a big news scandal broke, not related to 1D&D, but rather related to Spelljammer, to the new crappy 5th edition Spelljammer that they're doing. Which is that apparently a race in Spelljammer is racist. What a surprise. But the funny thing about this is that it's, this is all being done. Wizards of the Coast is completely controlled by Wokists, right? Their products, everything they're writing, everybody who's writing it, they're all ultra leftists. We're talking about, Antifa supporters, people that probably think that anyone who wears a MAGA cap should justifiably be killed, right? Or something like that. These are extremists. And yet they end up producing stuff that other wokists insist is racist. And it's very obvious why, on the one hand, of course, the other wokists are often exaggerating, lying, making stuff up, because their problem fundamentally is that they're not working for Wizards of the Coast, right? Because all wokists' strategy is to accuse everything of being racist or otherwise bigoted, anti-trans, whatever, homophobic. You don't really hear homophobic much anymore because gay men, I think, are no longer part of they're no longer welcome at LGBT events, right? Neither are lesbians, for that matter, right? It's gradually just becoming tea. But they have an incredible ability to spot bigotry and racism in the products of any that is being made by anyone who isn't paying them. So their problem with Wizards in part is not that Wizards is filled with Klansmen or something like that, right? It's just that they're not working for Wizards. And so the part of it is always a demand for grifting for money, right? But in this case, I think that the guy who is making the complaint and the people who have agreed with him might have a point. I know that a lot of you who are OSR gamers and, D&D traditionalists, just out of absolute immediate instinct, are going to turn and say, when someone says, this D&D thing is racist, your instinct is to say, no, D&D is not racist. There's nothing racist about D&D, right? And usually 9 times out of 10, you'll be right. But the thing is, this is a race that has been essentially recreated. Basically, it was a very obscure race before this, and it has been rewritten by a wokist. And I am going to argue to you that, in fact, wokists are incapable of writing anything that isn't racist. Because if you sincerely believe that all races, like the whole argument in RPGs, in D&D, that orcs are racist, right, is basically, or that anything else is racist, any other race in D&D is racist, is that all non-human races in fantasy and science fiction are actually always and only analogies for other human ethnic or racial groups, right? So orcs have to be black people because they can't imagine in their head that orcs represent something like the corrupting power of sin. Right? That sort of level of metaphor is beyond them. It's literally beyond them, because in school they've been taught this postmodernist ideology that means that they can't even understand metaphor anymore. They can't grasp deeper symbolism because they've been taught that there is no such thing as deeper symbolism, that everything is these superficialities. So they can't comprehend myth anymore. And they can't comprehend symbols anymore to beyond the most basic extent, right? They know that the little man walking the street means walk, right? And they can grasp maybe the first layer of some kind of symbolism, but they can't grasp anything deeper than that. And they have no concept of morality, so they can't imagine the idea of something like the corrupting power of sin. So of course, to them, orcs are black people, right? That's what they think. And also, they're all unbelievably racist. They have a political ideology which suggests that every race that isn't Caucasian is in some way disadvantaged in comparison to Caucasians. That they without the help of socialism, cannot actually compete against Caucasians. Ironically, they believe that white people are vastly superior to every other race, and that's why you need government interference to make sure that these evil things that white people keep doing, like meritocracy and showing up on time to work and all these things, as far as they're concerned, are impossible for a non-white person to achieve, right? A non-white person is not capable of getting a photo ID. A non-white person isn't capable in their mind, right? In any of these cases, a non-white person to them would not be capable of showing up on time for work. Right? And so all these things must be racist, and that's their solution is a paternalism that also means you have to get rid of any and all conditions and standards, because if anyone can't live up to those standards, then those standards must be bigoted, right? So in all of that context, obviously, the only way they could understand non-human races in fantasy and science fiction is as a shallow analogy for some other race, right? Everything has to be that. Elves can't be just elves. They have to be, I don't know, Frenchmen or something, right? And orcs can't possibly be orcs. They must be black people. I don't know. The gnolls are Latinos, stuff like that. So obviously, when they create a new race or create a new lore for a race, that lore is going to be racist, because the only thing they think non-human races in D&D are is a type of very shallow racial metaphor. So they're going to create a new race that is a racial metaphor. In this case, in Spelljammer, there's a race that has already existed in the earlier editions, but they had very little lore, that were called the Hadozi, right? And the Hadozi, as a species, are these what would you say? Not ape-like. They're monkey-like humanoids. So given the fact that Democrats founded the Klan, you know where this is going, right? They're humanoids that have this kind of baboon-like shape. They also have like flaps under their arms that allows them to glide. So they're with like a flying squirrel might have, and they're famous in the world of Spelljammer for working on ships, apparently. And so I'm going to give you first the lore as presented currently on D&D Beyond for the Hadozi, right? The first Hadozis were primitive animals, no bigger than house cats, blah, blah, blah. Several hundred years ago, a wizard visited the homeworld of the Hadozi with a fleet of spell-jamming ships. They laid magical traps and captured dozens of Hadozis. The wizards fed the captives an experimental elixir that turned them into sapient bipedal beings. The elixir had the side effect of intensifying the Hadozis' panic response, making them more resilient when harmed. The wizard's plan was to create an army of Hadozi warriors, but instead the wizard's apprentices grew fond of the Hadozis and helped them escape and killed the wizard. After this, they fled, taking all the vials of the remaining elixir. And then they used that elixir to produce more Hadozi. And all Hadozi newborns have the traits of enhanced Hadozis. And then they left to the stars. So it's slavery, right? This is a slavery analogy, because obviously, right, that's if you're, first of all, a Wokist D&D designer is going to look at a simian humanoid intelligent species and say, oh, well, that's a monkey. And as far as they're concerned, that must mean black people to them, right? Like that's because they're racist. They are the racists, okay? That's all that they could ever conceive of, these guys, right? And of course, therefore, if those are black people, the narrative should be racism, right? And should be slavery, right? Because everybody knows that. Everybody knows that to this day, all black people are still enslaved, because this is the worst possible world to live in as far as the Wokists are concerned. And, unless full communism is immediately embraced, then the suffering must continue, So the Hadozi are described in the lore as innately and actively curious and unquenchable optimists. They're expressive, resorting to loud whooping, fang-bearing, and snarling depending on emotions. They are not philosophers. They give little consideration to the ethics and morals of other races. They just want to do good and happy work. They take great joy in the simplest of tasks and chores. The Hadozi have a great love of the elves, who employ them often but do not respect them. So this is, they're now presented by this Wokist interpretation as basically monkey butlers or something like that, servants of the elves, who are, the most obvious. Obviously, if all non-humans represent something, elves are clearly somehow upper class Caucasians or something like that to them, right? So you can see that actually this is, it's written by someone who thinks that that every D&D monster is somehow a racial archetype, a racial stereotype rather. And so they went and created a racial stereotype. It fits. That's actually what's happening. It's so to say that this is racist is a legitimate criticism. Now you might say, no, but hang on, pundit. The Hadozi existed before. They've been around since like 2nd edition or maybe earlier, right? And well, in fact, the Hadozi were in the original Spelljammer. But here's the thing: in the original Spelljammer, that's not their story, right? They changed the whole damn story for them in this 5th edition Spelljammer version. In the original version, the Hadozis had no idea where their homeworld was. And the reason for that was that the central describing trait of the Hadozis, the main feature that they had, is that they loved to explore. They were obsessive explorers. They had an incredible passion for going to places they haven't been to before, for going to explore the new worlds, right? And they lived in space, right? They would settle in some small communities and spaceports in the Spelljammer world, and just to have families and stuff. But then when the kids came of age, they'd go and immediately go out exploring into the world. So they were wanderers, and they had been wandering for so long that none of them knew where their homeworld was. And that was their central trait, something that you couldn't possibly accuse of being racist, right? They're unquenchable optimists, yes, but they have a tendency to make good-humored jokes. They're peaceful people that fight only when they have to. And for them, a well-lived life, I'm now quoting from the older Forgotten Realms wiki entry that is pre this version, right? They're saying, for them, a well-lived life is one where they'd seen and experienced all that they could. I think Meatball's getting it on with, or getting into it with one of the local dogs. Oh no, maybe the dogs are getting into it with each other. Sorry, guys. For the Hadozi, a life well lived is one where they'd seen and experienced all they could. So they like to journey to uncover magical secrets, the lore of fallen empires, or find pirate treasure. They're called always to go out looking for what is new, right? So why did this guy who was creating this, he obviously, in fact, it's 100% clear that the guy that wrote the new version of the Hadozi had read the old one, because there are parts where he literally cuts and pastes. He takes it right out of the old material. He uses some of the same language, right? So this is not entirely an original new work, right? He actually took the old entry, cut out some of the parts, all the parts that kind of made the Hadozi less stupid. Particularly the fact that their central trait is that thirst for exploration, that thirst to go out and, to seek out strange new worlds and new civilizations or what have you, and replaced it with a slavery story, right? Because I hate to say it, right? It seems so horrible, but to the leftists, it's because those are apes, and apes could only represent in their minds one thing, which means they think the left thinks black people are apes, right? That's the real thing here. They are always the racist ones. They're always the ones that, in their assumptions, they think because they're being paternalistic racists, that because they're claiming to fight and to protect and to help these poor other races, that means that they're somehow not. But they are. They're obviously racist because you couldn't come up with those kind of concepts if you weren't. And it's just so disgusting. So I am 100% in agreement with the people claiming that the current version of the Hadozi, as presented for 5th edition Spelljammer, is racist. And I'm further arguing that any wokist who writes new races will inevitably be racist in some way. Maybe not to this degree of stupidity, but they will be. Because they can't understand anything else. To them, that's all race is a skin suit that is meant to represent other ethnicities or other, persuasions maybe. There might be some races that are weird enough that they might mean, they might not be about race, they might be about sexuality or gender or something like that, right? But to them, that's all it's always going to be, right? It's never about any deeper concepts. They're incapable of making it about deeper concepts, right? Wanderlust is a deeper concept, and this dumbass couldn't understand that or why it was a good thing to have. So he just took it out and said, no, slavery, right? That's the answer. That's the reality that we live in. Because those dogs aren't going to stop barking. I think I'm going to more or less end it right here. But fundamentally, they're actually making it a self-fulfilling prophecy. They claim D&D is racist, and then once they're in charge of it, they make it racist. Anyways, if you like this video, please share it anywhere that you can, that you think people are going to be interested in it or pissed off by it. If you want to support me, well, first of all, subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and share. But if you want to support me economically, then, you could join my Patreon, but only if you're not interested in buying gaming products. Because if not, buy my products like World of the Last Sun. There's intelligent humanoid apes in the World of the Last Sun, and they are not in any way a racial stereotype. Star Adventure, The Invisible College, Lion and Dragon, Dark Albion, Sword and Caravan. All of my stuff is really good, and it's meant to be gameable, and it understands metaphor. Let's put it that way, right? It has deeper levels than the shallow garbage that these millennial idiots seem only capable of doing. So you're going to be able to use this stuff. You're giving me some money, but you're also getting stuff that you'll be able to play, and it's not meant to lecture at you or anything like that. There's not a political message in my books. It's just about gaming. So be sure to support me with that. Check out the RPG Pundit Presents series of PDFs that are all, between 99 cents and $4.99. And check out also my newest product so far is Social Encounters Along the Silk Road, which is now a bestseller on Drive-Thru-RPG. It's a complete system. It's not really about the Silk Road, even though I framed it for that because it's published by the people that made Sword and Caravan, but you can use it in any OSR game. And what it is a set of mechanics for you to handle social interactions, but they're OSR mechanics. They're not new style mechanics. They're not social combat rules and, weird stuff like story gaming stuff. No. They're based on the D&D reaction rules and expand that in a way that lets a DM work out how to adjudicate complex social activities like a debate or haggling or intimidation, bribery, recruiting people, all sorts of stuff. Any social situation you can imagine, you can apply these rules to. And it's in a way that really fits with the old school aesthetic rather than bringing in new school stuff. So be sure to check that out. It's only $3.99. Links are all in the description below. And thank you very much, guys. Currently smoking nothing because I just got in.